Hey, I'm Yoad. Welcome to my studio. I was hired by Audio Modern to make some content for Playbeat 4, which is a beast of a drum machine. And that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to sample the Minimoog and make some noises and bleeps and clicks and stuff so we can use them inside Playbeat 4. Let's start with some noise. So here I can shape the noise with some resonance. So I'm working with self-oscillation. And if I lower the amount of envelope to filter, I can get it quite low. Now I want it shorter. Different pitches, so we can go for like syndrom tom sounds. And now for some clicks. Now let's try to get some cymbal sounds. That could be useful. I think we have plenty. Let's go and process these sounds and see what we can get out of them. I've noticed that only about 40% of you guys are actually subscribed to my channel. So if you like what I'm doing here and would like to support this channel, please subscribe. It only takes a second. And now, after editing all the samples, I can see them here. So I can drag the first one to the first slot. And now we can preview this folder. So before we can use these samples, I want to get some solid kicks. I like this one. So that's going to be our kick. And now we can just program it in. And while it's playing, we can look for some other samples. Here, we're going to go for maybe a snare sound. That was kind of cool. I'm going to populate all the cells with different sounds. Let's drag some to here and see what we have. I like this one. That's cool. That could be like an extra hi-hat. This is definitely going in. And let's use some hi-hat samples as well, because we need an open hat. Let's try to look for one. Here, like this one. And another one, closed hat. This one is cool. Okay, and now we can start building the pattern. So now I'm going to go for the offbeats. And maybe a closed hat. And here I want to give it some swing. So now I'm going to lock the kick, the clap or snare, whatever it is, and the offbeat hi-hat. And then I'm going to randomize the rest of them. So I want to randomize just the pattern and not the sounds. Now I'm going to randomize the panning a little bit on all of the ones which aren't locked. So we get a nice spread. And here I'm going to randomize the level of this percussion thing. The only thing I'm not sure about is that snare sound, and maybe we can change it to a proper clap. Maybe this one. Let's try another one. I like that one. It's kind of minimal. So here we already have an interesting pattern happening. The kick is a bit quiet. Now we can maybe change the pitch of this clap. Now we can try some ratchets on some of the notes. That's cool. So here we have a pattern playing, and now we can start randomizing stuff. So I want to keep the kick, the clap, and the open hat as they are. And now once we have that pattern, I'm going to generate a whole keyboard worth of different variations of that pattern, which can be accessible using the keyboard. So now I can trigger them live. And I have 24 different variations of that pattern. What I can also do is trigger the different elements of each pattern. So if I want just the clap and the kick, and then I change the pattern and I can do the same. And I can also trigger the individual samples if I want to use the DAW's sequencer to program the pattern. I love this sound. So this is one pattern which we can now save. And let's go for another one. I'm going to fill in the kick again. Select a nice juicy kick. That's not a bad one. Get a clap. Get a random closed hat pattern. And let's select a sample for that. That's a nice one. Swing. Now it's a bit long, so I can shorten the sample. And give it a little bit of fade out. That's more like it. I can also tune it from here. So I can bring it up in pitch as well. Now let's get some Minimoog noises. So I'm going to randomize the rest of the pattern, and maybe I'll make it a little bit more complex. Interesting. And let's throw sounds on top of that. Let's go to the Minimoog folder and just start populating those cells. Now this one is way too long. We can either use it as a downbeat, or we can... That's better. I really like this syndrom sound, but I want to randomize its pitch. And I can select the scale. Let's select a minor scale. A minor, because why not? And let's randomize the panning as well. And this applies to the samples which are not locked. Let's get some ratchets on the closed hat. I need to unlock it. So if I select this row, I can randomize just that sound. Which is kind of cool. That hi-hat is a bit loud. And now I can populate the entire keyboard with different variations of that pattern. Or I can trigger the rows individually. So I'm quite happy with this preset. I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to randomize the pattern, except for the kick and the snare, and look for some new sounds. I'm liking that already. So now I'm going to generate new permutations of this pattern. I really like those bleepy sounds. Now let's erase all the cells, keep the kick and snare, look for different sounds for them. Now I like this one, but both the kick and the snare are very long. So let's start with the kick. Let's shorten it. And let's move to the clap. That's very cool. And we can also filter it down a little bit. Let's start adding some new sounds. And change some of the samples. Let's go back to our Minimoog samples. I like this one, but again, it's very long. So let's go to the sample. Nice. This clicky one can change to something else. Like that. And now we need to randomize the panning a little bit, so it's nice and spread out on all the cells except for the ones that are locked. And maybe here we can add some. I think we need a little bit less swing for that to work. And we need more spread. So I'm going to increase the randomizing factor. That's better. And I can also randomize the volume a little bit for each of the hits. Nice. The kick is a bit quiet. And what I'm missing is an open hat or an offbeat kind of part. So let's throw an open hat on this cell. Now we need to reset the panning spread. So I'm going to set the randomizing factor to 0 and hit randomize. And that will reset the panning for this open hat shaker. It's a bit loud. And again, I'm going to repopulate this with fresh variations of this pattern. Let's see what happens if we play them individually. Nice, I'm gonna save this. And now let's randomize the entire pattern, see what we get. Now we can look for different sounds to populate this pattern. The combination of electronic samples with the Minimoog works really well. And now we have this sound which is really long. We can actually be more busy, but we just need to make it shorter. But not only that, I can try selecting different portions of the sample. That's nice. And a bit of fade, so it's not as clicky at the end. And this could actually be a melodic element, because I can now randomize the pitch. We still have A minor selected, which is cool. And then I'm just going to randomize the pitch. That's really cool. The whole thing needs to be a bit louder. And let's give the rest of the sample. So I'm going to lock that because I like what it's doing. I'm going to lock the kick and the snare, and I'm going to randomize the panning on the rest of the cells. I like this a lot. And start again. So I'm going to randomize everything. Let's change the kick pattern to something more regular. And the backbeat as well. That's kind of cool. And let's throw in some fresh samples. Let's go with that and see how we can modify the different samples so the more gated rather than just having this massive tail. I don't think it's the right kick. Let's try to change that. Much better. The one that's doing the melody, let's work on that a little bit. So I'm going to unlock it and randomize the pitch. And we can make it a little bit more busy. Now, since the randomizing factor is very wide, the pitch range is very wide as well. So let's narrow that down. Now we can make the sample a bit longer. But since the sample itself has a pitch envelope, I think we need to find a different sample. Something with pitch. Like this one. Love that. Let's make it a little bit shorter. now let's give it some variations. I think we need to lock the kick because it's important that it keeps doing the 4 on the floor pattern. So let's lock that and then repopulate all these variations. That's more like it. Definitely safe. Now let's see if we can change the melody sample to something else. Even something like that. And something else instead of this sound. Like let's see what we can do here. Let's try to turn this into an open hat. And we can use a high pass filter. Nice. Now we need some panning across the whole thing, except for the open hat and kick, but it should be quite mild. Just to open it up a little bit. So let's randomize everything except for the kick, hat and snare, and let's give it more complexity. I can actually draw some stuff in. And let's go for different sounds. So this is such a creative process and it's so much fun. I'm really enjoying that. This is such a powerful machine. This is not a tutorial or anything like that, but just to show that I can now drag the audio or I can drag the MIDI for each row or the entire MIDI file. I can continue to process it further in the DAW, use different effects, trigger other samples if I wanted to. So it's so flexible. I love this machine. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. And I will see you on the next one.